Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Tabletop Tactician in my series where I'm covering all my custom units for Global War 2025 Meltdown. You'll notice real quick that we are not on Global War 2025 Meltdown's board. I'm currently playing through a Global 1940 Axis and Allies, so figured I would change it up and throw them on here to cover this video. So here we'll be covering the Pacific Coalition and what is to date my widest variety of countries covered. Here I'll be representing Taiwan, Australia, Japan, and India. I have some pieces set aside as well for South Korea. However, I could not find any decals I really liked, so I'm either going to wait for some to come out or maybe venture on trying to make some of my own. So for now, this will exclude South Korea. If I do in the future get some South Korean units added into Paint, I'll make sure to update this video and put out a new one in this series. But for now, we'll exclude South Korea here. So I'm going to start from the back here with the aircraft. We're going to go first with helicopters here on the right. Here we have covering for Australia, a Eurocopter. This is a 3D print from Historical Board Gaming. Then the last two helicopters here are the stock pieces from the game. This one, just the stock Apache covering Taiwan. And the stock helicopter covering India. Nothing too exciting there from the helicopter department. Moving on to drones. This is the Loyal Wingman put out by HBG in a nice 3D print here. This is kind of a stealth drone designed to fly with a crewed fighter to be an extra interceptor, ground attack, something. I know it's in development with Boeing. Very cool. Thought I'd give the Pacific Coalition a unique drone here. So they're the only ones with an exclusive drone in my game. Moving on to our fighter aircraft, we have F-16s and the stock F-35. So the F-16 here in Japan is representing the J-2. That is the Japanese home-built F-16-esque airplane. It's pretty much an F-16. So it's represented very well by this 3D print from Historical Board Gaming. Also flying the F-16 will be the Taiwanese. So this will be a true F-16 wearing the Taiwanese emblem there on the wing. And the last fighter I have represented here is an F-35 for the Aussies. I believe the Aussies bought only F-35As, so that's what this will represent here. Be nice to see him buy some F-35Bs for the Canberra class, which I'll get to here in a little bit. So I'm going to go through each country's ground units one by one here because of the diversity. So we'll start with Taiwan. This is the stock sculpt. I did buy some extras. This one's not the 3D printed one. Each country got one 3D printed one. They look identical as the mold, actually. I found through gameplay that Pacific Coalition can use some extra infantry sculpts. So there are a few 3D printed ones. Most of them are the stock molds. However, they look exactly the same. So this is the Taiwanese. And the Taiwanese will also sport the stock Abrams. So with their emblem there on the back, these circle decals did not apply too well to the rear of the Abrams there. I wish I would have put them up on the turret, I think, in hindsight, but hindsight's 20/20, and it's only paint. A little rubbing alcohol will take this off. Ask me how I know. Moving on to the Australians. Once again, the stock. Let's see if nope, didn't grab the 3D printed one. Stock infantry there. As well as the Australians will run the stock Abrams tank here. Not many countries in the world have Abrams, so I wanted to represent actual Abrams where I could. Moving on to the Japanese. Stock infantry here. Still the mold. Maybe I grabbed it, maybe I didn't. And I believe this is the K2. I'm going to get this wrong. This is a really cool Japanese tank. Not much room on the back, so where I put the Rising Sun, thought it looks pretty cool. Kind of an off-center position. Not many of my units have had that. It's very cool. Only 3D printed. Not the only 3D printed tank I have, sorry, but the only unique one to the Pacific Coalition. Finishing up with India. Once again, stock. Yep, didn't grab one of the 3D printed ones. So the stock mold here for India. And the Indians also own quite a number of T-72s, so you'll find that as a theme throughout my game. So I have a lot of T-72s because there's a lot of these in the world. A lot of them getting destroyed in the Ukraine right now too. So T-72 for the Indians. Moving on to naval, we'll start with the carriers. Technically super carriers in the game, however, I don't know if you could classify the Vikrant and the Izumo as a super carrier, but nevertheless, we have the INS Vikrant here. Ski jump here, these would launch MiG-29s. I do need to get a MiG-29 for my Indian Air Force as well. Haven't gotten around to that now that I realize, so there will probably be an update to this video in the future, adding the South Koreans and expanding here on my Indian Air Force. But we have the INS Vikrant here, and the Izumo helicopter carrier destroyer, now an aircraft carrier after the modifications. So these will launch F-35Bs as well. And lastly, that Canberra class. The Australians have 2 of these. These are actually the only landing helicopter dock units in the Pacific Coalition that I've bought. The only hull here. South Koreans do have a landing helicopter dock as well, so do the Japanese, kind of, with the Vikrant, or I'm sorry, with the Izumo, but I'll represent in my game with the Canberra class here, which is actually the Spanish San Juan class, or sorry, Juan Carlos class. So you'll also see some of those in my NATO. Moving on to frigates, here we have the Indian frigate, real tiny. See if I can pronounce this, the Project 17A. So real tiny little ship. This will be representing my Indian frigates, and then the Japanese, I believe, Mogamis. Yes. So little Mogami class, very cool. And the only available at current destroyer, guided missile destroyer for any Pacific Coalition is the, this is the one I don't know if I can pronounce here. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it, so sorry to my Indian friends. This is the only one available right now. Would love to get some Japanese ones. They have some very cool Aegis-based destroyers. So if you're listening, Historical Board Gaming, it'd be a really cool piece to have for Global War 2025 and probably Global War Modern, which HPG is working on. So for now, this is the only one. I'm finishing out with submarines. The boring one is for my ballistic missile submarine. This is just the the Chinese Type 92. The Indians do have a ballistic missile submarine, however, not one offered yet. So stand in there in the Chinese. And the Kilo class here, kind of an odd duck, as it's not a nuclear powered, it's a diesel electric. It's, once again, the only one I could find of current submarines for Pacific Coalition. And the Indians actually operate quite a few of these. I was surprised when I was doing some research. So we'll have kilos represented for my Pacific Coalition fleet. So thank you everyone for watching.